Hey Darrel, you'd asked about drawing lines, inking lines that are straight or having trouble with your hands shaking. I thought maybe I would help you out a bit if I could, how to address that. Excuse me. And some of the things that I do. So, I like to ink with a brush, and one of the problems with inking with a brush is that it radiates every little wiggle that you put into it, and that displays itself very quickly on the paper. I got some old scratch paper I just grabbed. So if you're trying to eliminate wiggle in your line, one thing that you want to keep in mind is your total body mechanics to start, how you're sitting, how comfortable you are, and how comfortable you are drawing, both mentally and physically. All kind of pushes through whatever tool you're using and creates a wiggle to your line if you're more uncomfortable. Now, along with that, you're almost always going to have some wiggle. That's just part of being human. Your muscles twitch and, you sneeze, whatever. So the three things that really help me, first and foremost, is how you're gripping the pen or the brush or whatever you're using. A gentler grip is better because you tense up, and the harder you grip it, the more likely you're going to start shaking harder. It's starting to dry already. So you want to be comfortable in your hand, and then by extension, the second thing is comfortable in your whole body. So comfortable chair, comfortable table that you're working on, and that's regardless of if it's slanted or not. And then comfortable with your tool. If you're using a new tool or a different one that you're not used to, sometimes that lack of confidence in your tool can radiate through. The third thing is practice. Okay, so I got four things. Practice. Now, practicing basic lines like what I'm doing right now, just trying to get your body to move in the right way, that'll help you. If you have done that, I'm sure you've felt the difference. Even basic, like I equate this to practicing dribbling in basketball. It's just a basic skill that even somebody that's been doing it as long as I have, which is like 15 years now, still needs to go back to. And just study the basics, practice the basics. See that wiggle because my finger caught on the edge of there. But another thing about body mechanics specifically is figure out whether you're comfortable throwing a line, pulling the line away from you, or pulling the line towards you. Those are technical terms that I've been told. So throwing the lines like what I was doing here, where you're going more or less away from you, which is, whatever radius you care for, or pulling it towards you. So like towards me, away from me. I'm generally more comfortable doing long lines away from me. That's really dry. My body, I'm 6'4", my arms are long, so I take advantage of that, and more or less just sort of plant my brush or whatever tool I'm using in my hand, just sort of grip it loosely and hold it in one spot, and you know, assuming I'm not working into a wet area, I'll put my fingers kind of like, I don't know how well you can see these, kind of like that to create a bit of a tripod, or just to stabilize a little bit. And you know, assuming that I'm not smearing the crap out of the paper, I'll just go like that. You know, I'm not here. This will do, I think. That's 4B. That'll be good and soft. So let's say I'm doing a pencil piece. You know, something like that, and maybe something, whatever. So I'm going to want to follow those curves and just, you know, using the arc of my arm naturally, just like I penciled it. It doesn't have to be super right on top of it. You know, if you start really being like, I got to get that line just like I penciled it, then you're going to get tightened up. You're going to stress out. Not the best approach. So just relax, set, and go with it. You know, if you really screw it up, then, you know, break out the whiteout, go back, touch it up. No big deal. I still use whiteout on every single page that I do. Well, I take that back. I've been doing watercolor, and that doesn't work so well with the whiteout. But, you know, it's no, you know, it's there's nothing wrong with touching it up with the whiteout. And even, like, if I want to go back, this gets trickier going the inverse, but if I want to go back and let's say I want to make it a little wider, I didn't really do a heavy line here. I'm just kind of sliding it right on up, a little bit slower, but you know, nice and easy. Again, that's practice. The more you practice, the more your velocity is going to improve. Velocity is one of the best ways to eliminate the shake. If you go slow, here, let me go real slow and show you. Because the body mechanics are just wiggling as I move. I don't know if you can see that too well, but you know, it's harder for me to, because I can feel my arm tense, it's harder for me to nail the whole curve. There is a little bit of variation there and there, and you know, if I erase, if this is, I think it's dry enough, you can see that come out quite a bit there. So velocity is your friend. It will absolutely improve the smoothness of your line the faster you go. And you know, I don't ink every single day. I tend to do pages in steps and batches. So like I'm working on 4 pages of penciling right now. Once I get to inking, you know, I'll warm up a bit and transition from the mindset of penciling to inking, and let my body kind of take over just out of years of practice. And it's super dry. Why is it so dry? I don't know if my brush is skunked or my ink is skunked, but anyway. So, you know, once you get warmed up a little bit, release some of the stresses. Try not to worry about it. And then I'm going to start here just to have some clarity. Now, I'm not trying to mimic the line I made. I'm just trying to do the best brush line I got. Let me clean this. You know, this is kind of rough. This is rougher paper than I'm used to using, so it's a little more jaggedy on the edges of the lines. But you know, if you get your body mechanics right, your grip right, your velocity right, this is what I get for numbering steps. I know I said 3 and then I said 4 and I can't remember, but so those are like the 3 basic things: your velocity, your body mechanics, and your grip. And then those 3 things should, you can see the difference even from there to here. Just warmed up a little bit. as I increase my velocity, the straightness of it, I'm using from my shoulder. I don't think you can see that. My arm, my elbow's not really moving because, I had a wiggle. Let's do some thicker. I'm using my shoulder because of the fulcrum point of it, I think is what it's called. I don't know. I'm terrible at math, so. A couple other little tips that might be helpful. Comics art is made on, I don't know what you're drawing on exactly. If you're doing a smaller piece, comics art is made on 11 by 17 board. And the reason for that is to, once we reduce it down to a normal 6.5 by 10.5 or whatever it is, comic size, that helps eliminate some of that wiggle. So working at a larger size might help you. It'll give you some space to kind of clean up some of those wiggly bits. Working on a smoother board might help you. Changing tools, if you're used to using a pen, maybe switch, especially if you're using, let me just grab a dip pen. Here, this one's handy. This is just, I don't remember the type, but, they tend to grab and have a lot more friction. That's not wanting to work. If you're used to using a steel nib type, it may not be as smooth. Even I can't really get super smooth lines with these, especially on this rougher board. Personally, I prefer brush over pen because of the feeling of it, really. I'm not a big fan of that grating kind of edgy feeling. But, if you, like, I've had back problems and that tenses me up at times. And, it's super dry. Let's get that. But the back problems radiate into my body, and it just kind of all comes right on through to the brush. And try different types of brushes. There's good enough synthetics now that you can, if that's the route you want to take, they're not super expensive. This is a Sable. It's like $30 a pop or something, but I've had this one for a couple years now, and this and its twin that I got at the same time. So, if you're still feeling like a good brush will help a little bit, but it's not gonna, if your hand's the problem, it's not gonna save you. So, or if it's your arm or wherever. But, a good brush will help you feel a little more confident, or a good pen or whatever it is that you prefer to use. And even if it's a Micron or a Pigma, if you feel more confident in your tool, like it's going to do the thing you want it to do, then you're going to be more relaxed, more comfortable, and get a better result if you trust your tool. Because I've worked with stuff that I've not been comfortable with, and that tension again just generates right through me and right through my art. So this is just me kind of playing, practicing, using my body mechanics to make different, see, there's all just fingers, make different strokes, make different effects. There's a flick, which comes out a little wobbly because of the stupid pen or brush. I should have taken a little time and primed it, but I didn't. I just put some water on it. Let's do some feathering here. And, if you're wondering about stuff like what I'm doing right now, I learned a lot of this by, if you're on Instagram, following professional inkers, specifically Jay Leaston or is it Leiston? I don't know. And Jonathan Glapion and Sandra Hope were the three that I just dug into for a good long while and watched a lot of their just inking videos that they've got, and saw how they used their hand, how they moved their hand, how they held. Like Sandra Hope has that really, I don't think I can even do it, really weird, she sticks her index finger out like that, and I can't even, and just uses her middle finger to kind of rock. It's not comfortable to me. Of course, I use a bigger brush from her, but so yeah, chop, 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 chop. You know, and then just take your time, learn to do stuff like this, practice little choppy lines and, you know, dashes and feathering and just, you know, all the little detail-y things. Fill up a whole board like this. Go from small to big, just as fast as you can. It's totally dry brush now, but whatever. You know, and just do that again and again. Honestly, it's more about your hands and arms than it is about the tool. This is just what I like to use. It's not super important. So, you know, once you get through that, hopefully you'll have better results. So, anyway, I hope that helps. It's been interesting to see, you know, your notes on your journey through Facebook. And anyway, cheers.